This has been one of those weeks that has just seemed to drag on, where every single day feels like it's 3 or 5 days. And it's not from just being bored, or it's not from just having nothing to do. It's just for the fact that although it should feel like it's going faster, having to make a bunch of kind of like stressful decisions and trying to manage that stress is tough. It's hard. It occupies your mind. It makes you more worried about things that you honestly don't need to be worried about. And it's one of the reasons when there's weeks like this where going to exercise is super important to me. And I say that because there are certain effects that exercise can do when it comes to managing your stress and anxiety. I know this because I've been someone who has not exercised diligently or done exercise much in any way to becoming someone who does happen to exercise a lot and often. And sure, I've lined up my career that way, being a fitness coach, but it's something where I've slowly over time learned the reasons why exercise, although it seems stressful, is something that can actually help you manage your stress and happen to make you get in control of your anxiety and anxious feelings. So, we're going to define kind of a couple of those things and terms that we're going to go over. We're going to talk about understanding really that connection with the brain and the body and how those two kind of correlate. And we're going to go into some different types of exercises and their benefits. For example, like what does yoga do for you more than like strength training or cardio might do for you? And then we're going to talk about some ways that you can implement some of this stuff, because I hate when people just try to spit off a bunch of information and then I'm like, okay, what do I do with that? What's the point of you telling me all that info? Cool, I guess. But we're going to go over all these topics and much more, and we're going to try to relax a little bit, and try to get over some of this stress or anxiety that you might have and figure out different ways to manage it. So, focus in and let's have a chat. Jumbo, my friends. I'm Coach Zoe, or the Coach Zoe you know. This is What the Foss, a podcast where I answer different questions that have to do with both your physicality and mentality in order for you to go out and do the activities that you love in the best way possible. Now, today we're talking about something that seems to come up with clients of mine, friends of mine, family members of mine, almost everybody who I know. At some points in time, we are stressed, we are anxious. We have a lot of these things and life feels so chaotic and we don't know what to do with it, and all these decisions seem to be crashing down on us. And that's how we kind of get in our own head about it. We think that we're in this horrible, terrible situation where if we really kind of take a step back and take a bigger view at this, we're actually okay. It's more that our mind is kind of freaking out about a lot of these things versus every single decision or worrisome thought is actually real and something that is affecting our life in some big way. Now, that's not to discount any feelings that you have or to discount any of the emotional feelings you might be going through. It's more to just say that in order to kind of figure out how to manage some of these things and for exercise to help you manage some of these things, it's important to know, like, to really define what these things are, right? Now, let's take stress, for example. If I was to define stress, I would basically take it as a mental state of worry, but something that it basically is like thinking about what actions might be negative, or basically thinking about the negative things that will happen because of X, because of Y. So, for example, perhaps going through a breakup, right? Or perhaps you're losing your job. These are different things where it's this type of distress that seems to be really have this heavy burden on you because it is something where you have these actions and you think, oh man, well, the negative consequences of this person breaking up with me are that, I'll be more lonely, or I won't have these things, or these friends were associated with these people and will grow distant. And your mind can just go on and on with this stress as you go over different bad things that can happen. But what about anxiety? Well, anxiety is a little bit different. See, anxiety is more of this like feeling of tension or unease from basically having uncertain outcomes. So anxiety, if you think about the difference between stress or distress in this case and anxiety, is that distress is more of the thinking about some of these negative consequences that could come up. And the anxiety is more the issue with trying to make important decisions. And these decisions can make you more nervous. And that is this basically this feeling of tension that you feel. And people feel it physically, or some just feel it mentally when they get really anxious about something. But when it comes to both of these, how does exercise in this case relate to stress? Because you might be saying, well, Coach Zoe, if I'm having all these stressful things going on, why would I go out and sweat and get tired and do all these really tough, difficult things? Why would I go out there and put myself through that if I am already currently stressed? And I'm telling you that the reason that exercise can help is because there are two different types of stress. There is distress, where it's these things that you feel like these negative consequences that are happening to you. And then there's a different side. There's the side of eustress. And eustress is the type of stress that is actually related to more positive results. So you can think of this in the sense of, think about if you went to go hike, right? You know, around where I live, about an hour away, you can go on some fairly steep hikes. They're exhausting. It could be really hot out. Your muscles are getting fatigued. You're trying to work your way to the top. You're getting out of breath because you're going up these hills and going over big rocks. And you happen to realize that the reason you were going through this stress is for perhaps this great view at the top, or to make this good memory with friends because you're doing this social activity. So it's going through this bit of stress for a positive outcome, or going through these difficulties for a positive outcome, versus distress is when you feel like this stress is happening to you and you think about all the negative parts of it. Eustress is when you were doing something, but you think about more of the positives, because it is more of the feeling that you will get down the road in this case, or when you go through and do exercise that kind of matches your ability level. But we'll get into that a little bit. The quick bit I want to go over first is going over some of these connections basically between the brain and the body. Now, I'm not going to go too super deep into it. I'm trying to make it as kind of clear and understandable as possible when we were going on this. So the way that I want you to think about this is I want you to think about understanding this connection between the brain and the body and some of the research that happens in this case. So when we're doing more of this kind of like eustress activities, or more of these ones that are positive in this case, what this does is the actual doing of these exercises can help us to increase these like mood boosting endorphins. And you want to think of some of these as like dopamine, or serotonin. And if you go and see these, you'll see that basically these endorphins, think of them as just brain chemicals, right? When you go through and do certain activities, you help your body to be able to release some of these more positive brain chemicals. And at the same time, it can help you decrease in some of these stress hormones that you may find. Some of the stress hormones can include things like cortisol or adrenaline, because sometimes when people are anxious, they start to get this release of adrenaline. And when they happen to do that, that's when they start to get more anxious and kind of that jittery feeling. When you have a lot of this adrenaline from, let's say if you're really scared of heights and you go up to some place that's really high, that's going to cause some of that anxiety that's there, but some of that is caused because you have this increase in stress hormones of this release of adrenaline in this case. And when we look at more of like why this is the case, or why exercise actually helps with that. So exercise helps with what I will refer to as your arterial health. Basically, think of this as your blood flow, right? So if you think of this as your blood flow, when you are exercising, your body is doing an increased amount of blood flow throughout your body because you're getting this kind of pumped feeling to your muscles. When your muscles are getting worked, your body goes through this whole really cool circulation process where it is trying to take some of these chemicals out that happen to appear when we are doing more kind of exercise and working our muscles, and it's trying to bring new fresh nutrients towards those muscles. And that's the way that we get these nutrients around the body. But when we increase this arterial health or this blood flow, that helps to improve your brain's ability to do a lot of different things that help with stress and anxiety. Things like making sure that you can regulate your emotions in this case, or you can have a better response when you come to this distress. When your body's in a healthier state, when you're able to increase your blood flow, your body has a better chance of being able to regulate some of this stress versus if you're not getting this good connection of kind of flowing these fresh nutrients around the body and getting a nice amount of blood flow into the brain. A lot of these kind of things, if you're not doing exercise, your body gets into more of this state of being more stressed and anxious and having more of this release again of those stressful hormones. So just to stay a little bit off of that and kind of keep with a little bit more like kind of ways that it would apply to you in your daily life or when you get into activity. So if we have the little bit that we knew and kind of a little bit of understanding about the hormones, what about different types of exercises? What might certain things do in order to bring about some of these different benefits? So the three that we're going to look at in this case is aerobic exercise, which is basically more cardiovascular exercise, exercise that makes you breathe a lot more endurance type work. We're going to look at strength, and we're going to look at yoga and just touch those kind of three, because those are sort of three different ones that sort of came to mind for me. So if we think about more like aerobics or conditioning in that case, a lot of the research talks about how aerobic exercise helps with increases in gray matter. Now you're like, okay, what's gray matter? Well, gray matter is basically when you have certain parts of your brain that have many neurons that are attached to it. And the more kind of gray matter that you can have, the more you are able to have better emotional regulation. And aerobic exercise can help with increasing that gray matter, which means that you are having better areas of neuron connection, which means your brain is able to send different signals throughout the body in a more efficient way, thereby being able to have more emotional regulation or being able to kind of work with your feelings of stress or anxiety. So that's on the aerobic side. But what about the strength side? Well, on the strength side, we'll try that again. On the strength side, it helps with a little bit more of increased cognition, or basically increased learning in this case, because it helps us with a little bit more of this kind of like better sleep and also working on better attention in this case, gone from strength type exercises. But what does it say about yoga and yoga type exercises? What does research tell us? Well, research happens to tell us that yoga kind of works with the same ideas that meditation does, because yoga helps with a little bit more of increased focus, a little more increase of body awareness, because when you do a lot of yoga, you're holding in these specific poses and you really have to be kind of aware of where different parts of your body are located. And you have to realize, okay, well, am I balancing right here? Where's the weight kind of in my body? Am I more in my heels and my toes, my back leg, front leg? And it takes a lot more focus and awareness to be able to do this. And thereby, your body kind of adapts to the types of exercises and movements that you throw at it. So when you try to work on some of these and you try to work on it in yoga, it takes a little bit more focus and awareness, but you get more increased focus and awareness from doing these things. But it also brings about this certain bit of mental calmness. There's a lot of people who can talk about the fact that yoga can bring about a bit more mental calmness in this case, having less scattered thoughts. So when sometimes if you're just like sitting there and you feel really stressed, you're going to be bouncing through a lot of different thoughts. And if you're bouncing through all these different thoughts, you won't really be able to focus on what the actual problem is, or really kind of be able to take a step back and go, oh, okay, well, it's just this one thing. How do I work on that one thing? If your mind is completely scattered, that's way tougher to do. But yoga helps you kind of center in. Same with meditation, helps you kind of center in, calm down, and be able to kind of focus on the areas that you want to be intent with. And having this better awareness for all of these things helps with a bit more of that stress and anxiety that goes there. But if I'm giving you all these things, you might be like, Zoe, that's cool, that's great. You sound really smart. You wouldn't be right about that. But if you are going through all these things and you understand kind of a little bit more about some of the hormones that are released and the endorphins, and you understand that different types of exercise can help in different ways, how am I supposed to use this as some type of routine, let's say for stress management? Well, the best ways that I would give you is to find exercise that is at your level. I think a lot of the times, sometimes people tend to have exercise thrown at them, or when they think about exercise, they think about just like the most difficult thing ever with the heaviest amount of weight. And they think about like 1 rep maxing and people who do like power lifts and strongman competitions and all this stuff where they're like, I can't do that. How am I supposed to be able to do that? And they think that that is all that fitness is that it's just bodybuilding and just powerlifting and just going through like these big strongman competition type exercises, something that would be way out of their comfort zone, or just endless sprints or burpees. And the thing is, it's not. If you haven't been exercising, there's a lot of good that just going through and starting off by getting 10 squats, 10 push-ups, and 10 sit-ups, just to keep it simple, right? If you go through those 3 exercises and you do those, for a couple weeks, there's going to be some positive effects and changes. If you just do those once a day, each of those once a day, it could take you less than 2 minutes, depending on your speed of doing these, right? If you go through these, that could help you, because that might be something where it's just progressing just a little bit at your level, right? You're here, you want to keep working on progressing, but you don't have to all of a sudden jump up a million feet up from where you are now. You could start at just 5 feet and then work your way up little by little. And that way you are creating this eustress where it's bringing more positive benefits versus just burning you out or making you more likely to get injured. It's about progressing that up at a certain level. Also making sure you're doing different types of exercises. A lot of people will say, oh yeah, well, like I can do these yoga classes, right? But I don't think I could ever run. That's fine. You don't have to run. There's a lot of different forms of aerobic activity. You could go cycling, you could go swimming, you could go running if you wanted to, but you could also, hiking can also be an aerobic activity. It doesn't just have to be, oh, there's only this way and only burpees are the only activity you can do. You can do boxing. You can do a lot of different things. There's different options where it can be fun for you to be able to work on that and not just stay in one modality of just doing strength or just doing yoga or just doing aerobics. So making sure to vary that up. And also, this is kind of an important one to me, is finding time where there aren't any distractions. Think about the last time that you didn't have your phone on you. And I don't mean that just because it was dead and charging and you're just waiting on it to like turn back on and you're like, please get to a percentage where I can go on TikTok or Instagram. I'm not saying that. I'm saying like, when was the last time that you have put your phone away, you haven't even thought about it, you don't have any type of notifications on, and you've just gone without any TV sounds or any phone sounds, and you just have gone somewhere to be relaxed and read, or just to go on a walk with your dog, walk with your cat if you're one of those cat leash people. One of these things where the mind really benefits from some quiet types of actions. I didn't realize this until I had an accident a few years back, and that it was actually recommended to me by a doctor to pick up meditation. And I did that, and at first I felt so stupid. I was like, why am I sitting here in silence for 5 minutes? Like, this is boring. And my mind was super scattered, and I couldn't really focus on anything. And I kept thinking, oh man, are the 5 minutes up? And it takes a little bit of practice, but once you train your mind to kind of find these times where it's not distracted and there's not any noises, and you can just kind of sit in silence or walk in silence, you will find that there's a lot of these benefits that help with being more focused, being more attentive, being way less scattered in your thinking. But to conclude on some of these, I wanted to just give you this podcast episode just to think about different ways that you can think about stress and anxiety as a definition, think about what your body does when it's stressed or anxious, and how exercise can help with, all of these different feelings to try to get you in more of a positive feeling or more of a focused, attentive feeling versus feeling like you don't have any control over anything, or that your thoughts are scattered, or you're always worried about what's coming next. The brain and body really work together because of blood flow and endorphin type release. But the good that you do for one, let's say you take that quiet time for your brain, the good it'll do for the other, your body in this case. And that goes the same way, kind of back and forth. Just remember to vary up your exercise, start at your level, but also try new things. Who cares if you're bad at them? Who cares if you don't exactly know what you're doing? Just start at a small level, work your way up a little bit over time. And you want to find this balance of eustress, where you're doing these actions to try to get this nice beneficial reward, and also these times where there isn't any stress and it's silent and quiet and you take time for yourself. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate you being here. If you have any questions for me, or have any questions that you would like me to answer on a future podcast episode, feel free to message me either on Instagram at @foss_movement, or you can always reach me through my website, www.fossmovement.com. Otherwise, my friends, take chances, make mistakes, and remember that you are in control of your thoughts and your actions. Just because you have some of these feelings doesn't mean you can't take a step back, really think about what you can do for the better, and think about what actions you take throughout your day that can benefit you both physically and mentally. I'm going to go work out. Talk to you soon.